Welcome to Courageous Parenting Summit, transforming challenges into opportunities. I am Filza Jabin, mother of three beautiful children, transformational teen and parents leadership coach. And today we have here with us Shylla. Welcome, Shylla.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and we are committed to empowering parents and children by building connection with love. And today, Shyla is going to talk about behavior modification and developmental delays.
Fabulous. Welcome, Shyla. Let me quickly introduce myself and then we will read your bio because I'm super excited to get cracking on the questions. So I'm Edith Wallach. I'm a transformational leadership coach. I'm an Amazon best-selling book author and mother of three beautiful, clever children. Welcome, Shylla Webb.
Thank you so much, Edith.
You're very much welcome. Thank you for being here. So Shylla Webb, CEO of Inner Matter, is on a mission to improve well-being of organizations around the world. She has spent the past 25 years studying emotional intelligence and leading teams using an innovative collaborative approach. This sit and get model of leading is not her style. The mission of Inner Matter is to show others how to live a vibrant life in and out of the workplace by cultivating vulnerability, integrity, boundaries, resiliency, authenticity, nurturing, and thankfulness within themselves and when working with others. Wow, amazing, Baya.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talk on your Courageous Parenting Summit. They're completely my background, and I'm also a mother of two boys that are 11 and 12 right now. So,
Wow,
yeah.
beautiful. So tell
So,
us a little bit about the behavior modifications and developmental delays.
sure. So the first half of my career before I got into more of the organization wellness was specifically in education. Started working with special education, primarily with students with emotional behavioral disorders, specific learning disabilities, and autism. And the type of student I consistently worked with and was case manager for was those kids that had more of the behavior needs. They had some learning needs, but mostly it was the behavior, the area of social emotional learning. So I spent about 20 years in education working directly with students in various roles, whether it was directly in the classroom or it was being like a teacher behind the scenes and help problem solving with teams and doing training. And then I ended up as a school administrator, district level administrator before I resigned to go independent. Behavior is my wheelhouse. I love human behavior. That's actually what my master's is in. And how we can modify kids' behavior is actually quite simple. And I think that in today's society, I can talk in the US, in the education system, with the whole initiative of No Child Left Behind. I think all of that created some accountability and responsibility for educators to be do what is research based or evidence based, that we know what works. But what I also noticed that it did is it took the individuality out of some of these the strategies. So we have inside of us, the reason my company is Inner Matter is change happens from the inside out, and we all have a high level of internal wisdom. And when we're given a prescription of exactly how to modify behavior, what happens is it takes away that gut feeling, that internal knowing. And as a mom, I imagine you've all had those experiences where you just knew something was off with your kids, right? And you followed up on that, and then lo and behold, it was verified. For instance, my son, my youngest, was 6 weeks old, and I just knew there was something with his breathing that just wasn't sitting right, and yet it wasn't very behaviorally pronounced, let's say, or observationally. So I brought him in on a whim, and his dad was like, "Are you sure? We don't want to waste a doctor's appointment." And lo and behold, he had pneumonia. And 6 weeks old is pretty young. So it's following that gut instinct for one. But with that, so with the younger kids, they aim to please. They really do, up until that middle school year, that teenage shift. And outside of the toddler years, toddlers are very egocentric. And then all of a sudden they get into age 4, 5, and they start realizing how the external world interacts with them. And they start, and as young as 8 months old, the baby pushes the food off of the tray of the high chair just to see what adult's going to pick it up, because they know they're going to pick it back up. As young as 8 months old, the human is recognizing the cause and effect. The brain is developing that level. But then comes around age 4, and they're really aiming to do what's right. They're aiming to get applause or some type of positive reinforcement. Some will, because if all they've ever known was negative reinforcement, they will seek that out. But for the most part, if a child's been raised in a typical family setting, they will seek out that positive reinforcement. And so one of the best things that we can do with behavior modification is clearly define our expected behavior. So we will tell a child, developmentally, brain development wise, and communication, we can say, don't kick at age 2 and 3. And what are they going to hear? They're going to hear kick. And so most likely they are going to kick again. Yeah, because they're going to hear what was last. And even adults do this. Like, I'm not just talking about the younger ones. I mean, this goes all the way into adulthood. But if we stand there and say, keep your feet together and to yourself, and we model specifically what we want them to do, and then offer praise. When I say reward, we don't have to give them a toy. We don't have to give them a token. That works in very extreme cases, but for the most part, I shy away from that. As a behavior analyst and behavior scientist that specialize in schools and the whole token-based system that U.S. education has gone in, I really pull away from that, because in reality, we're not going to get a token when we're on the streets, doing expected behavior, or in the store. We're not going to get that. And so it's not always realistic. Now, when I say extreme cases, I'm talking about 1% to 2% of the population. The rest are all going to actually do the expected behavior just on that verbal, the verbal rewards and the verbal praise. So when we all want to be seen, heard, right? And when we see a child deeply, we take time to really see them, to hear what they're saying or seek understanding. Typically, a child's going to rise high to the occasion. So let's say a conflict happens and this child's repeating the same behavior over and over. Do you want to throw me an example, a common one that you've heard during the summits at all?
Yeah.
What's a common behavior that you've heard people talk about in the summit?
So what they usually talk about is creating boundaries, and also emotional intelligence, how to manage emotions as an adult, as a parent.
Okay, so a child learns at a very young age how to regulate and start regulating. As soon as they're, as an infant, they're already learning that emotional regulation, and they're learning who's going to respond to them, who's not going to respond to them. A child at as young as 3, 4 years old knows what face to put on, what response to put on to get a certain interaction or reaction from the adult. So the best thing that we can do, if anything, go neutral, right? I see you. We can say, one of the things that I would do with my boys, when I have one that was really, as a young child, very temperamental, like would kind of go hot-headed just like that. And the other one was super laid back and chill. And they're still somewhat like that. Anger, though, I didn't want to teach them that anger was bad, because anger is part of the human experience. And as an adult, anger has served me really, really well at times. It has helped me get things done that I didn't like. It has helped me draw boundaries on things that were pushing against me. It has fueled me for so many amazing things. And so I wanted my children to see that anger is okay. It's just how we express our anger that doesn't work for. So I will say it's okay to be angry. And right now you're at a yelling phase. And sometimes I would allow them to yell can we talk now? And I would see if they're willing to talk now. If the answer is no, okay, go in your room and get it out. Go yell it out. I know that you don't mean it towards me. You might be angry with me, but I know that you don't really want to attack me. So go scream it out where it's completely safe. You don't have to worry about hurting my feelings or feel guilty about hurting my feelings. And then come out when you're done. So go, and what I noticed too with my boys is this is where that gut instinct comes in. And even with some kids, I would have to sit in the school system. I would have to sit and process with them. Other kids wanted to process completely on their own. They wanted to be totally left alone. That's the difference between whether or not someone internalizes or externalizes their own behavior, what's happening. And so with my youngest child, I had to go and sit in with him, which is weird because he's the one that gets hot-headed and needs to scream it out and scream it out whatever he wants at me. But what he would do is he would look the other way and yell it. So, but if I gave him a timeout and was not right there with him, he would actually hurt more. He would feel rejected, abandoned, or like I was ignoring him or dismissing him. The other child just wants to be completely left alone, time to process, and then he'll come out when he's ready.
So wonderful. So can you tell us some strategies that are most effective for behavior modification in children with developmental delays?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to look at a child when we're talking about developmental delays. There are many areas. It could be academic. It could be the social delay. It could be the cognitive processing delay. With learning disabilities, we look at how kids take in information and how they extract the information. What we want to do is identify where they're at. And a really good resource is, it's called Yardsticks, and it's a book by Chip Wood. And I know it says in the classroom, ages 4 through 14, and I'm sure it's been updated to a much better now, much better version. But this breaks down where kids are language-wise, academic-wise, social, emotional learning. So if I have a child that's actually in, let's say, second grade, so I think that's 8 years old or so. If I have a child that's 8 years old, but they're really functioning at a 4-year-old level, language-wise, then I don't need to talk to them like they're a 4-year-old. I need to talk to them still like they're an 8-year-old. But I need to use the language that a 4-year-old can understand. When it becomes a behavior, when we're talking behavior, less is more. The more simple we can be with our direction and the more remote that we can be with it. So it's like, at home, I will tell my boys, I need you to hang up your towel. Yep, as soon as you hang up your towel. Okay, as soon as you hang up your towel. Let's talk about it then. And the next thing you know, by the third time, usually they're hanging up their towel, and now we can move on to the next thing. It might be that it might be academically, they're pushing against me with homework. All right, you don't have to do homework right now. What time do you plan on doing homework? And they set the time, and then I need to follow up and make sure that we actually do it at that time. Now, if I have a child with a developmental delay and they're getting, my boys right now are in 5th and 6th grade. So if they're getting 6th grade homework and they're really at a 4th grade academically, then I need to provide the instruction and modify it for the 4th grade level academics. What?
No, that's what I'm just wondering. And how do you do that?
How do you do that? Well, that's where you can rely on the school, and hopefully the school is helping out with that. And you have to make sure, here in the United States, we have to make sure that a child has a certain plan before we modify. But what I can do at home, though, is I can actually teach it at a 4th grade level. Right now with the internet, there's all sorts of strategies out there that we can utilize the internet to show us how to break it down in very simplistic forms. But when we talk about brain development, executive functioning skills, one of the very first core areas is the working memory. This is my ability to tell someone something, and then they can remember it exactly and revert it back to me. Or it might be give a child 1 to 2 directions, and they can do those 1 to 2 directions in order. So it might be something like that. If they don't have that working memory skill, and that's not solid in development, then what I can do is what I need them to memorize, just as we do as adults, we write notes. This is what needs to happen first. This is what needs to happen second. No child wants to hear us be a broken record and nag. Like, as an adult, I don't want to hear someone telling me over and over what to do and to nag at me.
Oh.
So if I just write it down, like since my boys were about 3 or 4, when we go on vacation, what did I do? Because they didn't know how to read yet, I drew pictures. I did the number 5. They know the number 5. And then I did shirts. I drew a picture of a shirt. They needed to pack 5 shorts, and I did 5 and shorts. Now, if they didn't know how to read the number 5, I would draw out 5 pairs of shorts for them. And that's what they needed to make sure was in their suitcase. That's how I made them very independent at a young age. If I would have told them what they needed at that age, it would have never worked. But because I gave them each a visual list on a Post-it note and a pencil to cross it off as soon as they had it, they were able to fulfill the task, and they felt super proud of doing, what they see most adults do, of a big kid task. So it's the same thing with homework. We can write it down in very simplistic forms and let them be independent as much as possible. So instead of me repeating what they need to do next, I might go there and just gently point at what's next.
Wow.
And see
That's
if
a
they
great
can do
tip.
it. Thank you. Yeah, I truly believe all kids do well if they can. It's just we're not giving them the opportunity to do well, or maybe the time and patience that it takes. If I think of tying our shoes, right? If I'm rushing out the door as my child's learning to tie their shoes and I'm harping on them to hurry up, what am I telling them? They can't trust themselves.
Yeah.
They're not
They
doing a
need
good enough.
reminder.
Yeah. They're not doing a good enough job. But if I sit there and just be patient, if I were to step in and tie their shoes every single time, they'd never learn how to tie their shoes. So as an adult, I have to look at what was my part in this for the behavior that didn't, I call it unexpected behavior. What was my part in creating that unexpected behavior? How did I set my kids up for failure?
Yeah.
Because that's within my control.
And most of that comes from how you were raised and how your parents were teaching you. And we take the generational habits, and without being aware, we apply that to our children, and we do the cycle over and over again with all of the tasks until we realize, oh, that doesn't serve me, that doesn't serve them either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. I think that we can model that for our kids too. Like, if I want my kids to think a different way, I invite them to think a different way, for one, because they're individuals, so they get to decide truly how they're going to think. And I will tell them it's an invitation. But if there's something that I want to really implant in them, what I will do is I will actually think out loud in front of them. So I have a child that gets really anxious about not getting things done right away. So what I started doing, instead of telling him it's okay, I noticed that the typical reassurance and reminders weren't helping him. So what I did is I started saying, I just realized that I had 45 minutes planned out to make dinner, and we only have 20 minutes because we have to get to your activities. I'm feeling super nervous inside about getting this done, but I'm just going to trust myself. I'm going to take some deep breaths as I'm doing this. I'm going to do a sprint with myself, get it done as fast as possible, and I'm going to trust, or I'm going to see what we can create. And if I don't get dinner done in time, then we'll go to plan B, which might be peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So, but I started just modeling that internal self-dialogue or self-talk. And probably within about 4 to 5 months later, he is now modeling that self-talk in an external form. So it planted the seed in him on how he could do things differently without me directly telling him. There's just, here's another possibility for you to try.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
I have a question about like misdiagnosis, and how can we seek you know, the professional evaluations? How can we ask for support and get that right diagnosis? I know that there is not 100% clarity, like who can give you the diagnosis, but what is your best bet?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as a child in the United States, as they're if they're infants, we can go into, we have early childhood, which is available through the public school system. So you contact your local public school district, the early childhood center, and you can, if you're worried like your child's not crawling or maybe speaking as soon as they could, you can connect with one of those people, and then they will do an educational based assessment, and they can help, you can access services that way. Through the medical facility or the medical lane, what you want to do is you want to talk to the primary care physician that you have, that your family doctor, just to share your concerns, and hopefully that'll open up. They can refer you to the right specialist. I'm going to say either way, I don't like the United States system, to be honest with you, because it is about finding wrong before you actually get services and what you need. Regardless of, you know, the issues that are there, or the diagnosis, I should say, I wish we could scrap all diagnosis, because what happens is it can put kids in a box versus looking at the individual as who they are. You know, we know that children with autism are typical visual learners. The language is too much for them in most cases. And if we provide things in a very visual, structured format, they will thrive. We don't often do that. So we can just look at a kid's learning profile, what is the best way that they receive information, what cases, what are situations that they respond very positively to. Is it when they get verbal praise? Is it when they get correction? Because there are some kids that have been so programmed through negative correction and firm correction that I had to do that with them at first, working with them, in order for them to hear me and to establish that trust, because that's their programming. Now, did I feel good about it? No, I did not. I didn't demean them. It wasn't abusive, but it was a firmer voice than what I'm used to. I did that to connect with them, to familiarize them. And then what we did was, then I was able to invite them into a new possibility, a different way of responding. So my boys, they have very different parents. I parent very different than what their dad parents. And so there's a lot of families that are like that, right? And so what I tell them is different parents have different styles. And what they should do is look at how their parents respond and decide, this is what I want for my life and what I don't want. So you're talking about generational things that are passed down. It's a great opportunity for you to decide, this is how I want my life. This is how I want to be as a parent. I don't want to be this way as a parent. And to choose differently.
Yeah.
So,
can you tell us the role of routine and being consistent in like play in supporting behavior modification in children with developmental delays?
Yeah, so again, depending on the child, if the child has more significant delays, I'm going to say the more visual you go, typically the better. So if when my boys were young, they didn't have the developmental delays, but what I did was the morning routine. I had it all very drawn out, pencil and paper, that's all you need, marker, paper, that's it, of what I expected. And so, did you get everything on your list done? And I let them go. You have this much time. Sometimes I'd set the timer. If we're in a crunch and I really need them to watch the time, they're going to race against themselves to get it done. I would say with behavior, one of the biggest things that is important is being very consistent and natural consequences as much as possible. I think natural consequences are the best teacher, So one strategy that's really helpful is it's ACT acronym. A stands for acknowledge the behavior. C stands for state the consequence that's going to happen. And then the T is take action. So if I watch it, for instance, my boys were messing around in the morning. Now they have their morning routine down, but then that time from them getting there out to the bus, that's where they were really goofing around. And their bus driver was so sweet. She was stopping for them mid block, or she'd wait for them and she'd greet them good morning, but they learned that they could drag their feet and they'd still get on the bus. So the natural consequence wasn't working. So then I said, you're really wasting your bus driver's time. And how many kids are on that bus? And they thought, oh, maybe 15. I said, and you're wasting 15 other kids' time. So if you're going to choose to do this, you're going to start giving time back. And we're actually going to go buy your bus driver a coffee card. We're going to give her something to sit and wait for. That's delightful, because I knew she liked coffee. And so that was the deal. If she had to stop mid-block or wait for them, we would go down to the local coffee shop and buy a $5 gift card so that they could gift it to their bus driver and say, I'm sorry that I was late. Here's a coffee card and you can sit and enjoy it this next time. One time. That's all it happened. One time. Yeah, that, like, if they're supposed to bring something home from school and they don't, they get one grace period that year, but then the next time, if I have to drive them, they pay me for a gallon of gas that it costs for me to drive them to get their books or things like that. And I drive a diesel. So diesel gas is always more expensive than unleaded. So then they don't want to pay me $5. And so then one got smart as they got older, and they're like, well, wait a second. It only takes about 10 minutes. Does it even use a full gallon of gas? I'm like, no, not at all. Well, why do I have to pay you for a full gallon? Shouldn't I just pay you for that mile? I said, nope. If you want to pay the shortened way, that's fine. Then you get to pay my hourly fee. Okay. I said, well, let's figure that out quick before you decide on that. So they figured it out what my hourly fee was. And it ended up to be like, it takes 20 minutes to go back and forth. And it ended up to be like $70 some. So I said, you get to choose whatever the going rate of diesel is, or that $70 some. And that was my low end fees. I said, I'll let you choose though. Either way, you're going to pay me because you're taking out of my day and everything because you didn't slow down and work hard on remembering. You have all the tools and the skills there. I believe in you and I know that you can remember it. We don't have an issue with them forgetting things after school. It takes, again, 1 or 2 times. I let them know ahead of time. So it wasn't that I shamed them or got mad at them or anything like that. It was like, okay, here's our plan. This isn't working how we are doing it. Usually 3 times of something not working, we should have a family meeting and we should be making a plan on what the natural consequence will be. So they know ahead of time. There are times where behaviors are going to pop up. I don't know what the consequence will be because I'm even like dumbstruck, all the years of working with behavior. I will say what you're doing right now isn't working. And I might say, let's say they're goofing around in the back of the car as I'm driving. What you're doing right now isn't safe. I don't know yet what the consequence will be, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to enjoy it. And if this keeps going, I'm going to stop and then I will come up with it. And the behavior's done. I don't yell. They know that this is what you're doing. This is the consequence. And I'm about to take action. And they know that if they go there again, I immediately take action. Most caregivers give them way too many warnings and reminders and let it go on way too long.
Wow. Edith, if you're asking any question, you're muted.
Love it. I love the reality check that you gave them, paying for the diesel, paying the choice as well, giving them the choice, because that's when they are feeling empowered that they can make a choice, either or. You choose. I love it. And can you give our parents your final thoughts and final tricks or tips about implementing behavioral changes or something that would empower our parents, apart from what they already learned so far?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's important to self-reflect and take responsibility for your part. So if I want my kid to apologize, then I have to work on apologizing to them too. Be who you want, like the type of parent or the model what you want them to do more than anything. That's going to speak loud and clear. My mom used to say, don't say as I, or yeah, don't do as I do, say as I, or yeah, do as I say. There we go. Do as I say. Don't do as I do. And I couldn't stand that. It's so contradictory. Her and I, we laugh about it now because she was like, yeah, that was so dumb. But that was what parents said back then, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, model exactly what you want it to be, whether or not it's your thinking, your actions. Always reflect back on how you contributed. I will tell my kids, you're right. I changed my mind and I can see how that set you up. I should have slowed down and made sure that you understood why I was suddenly changing my mind in this situation. I get how I contributed to that. And that's a way to deeply connect with them and then repair the situation. You know, and get things back on track. And they'll typically, I mean, because we mirror each other as humans, they'll typically then, they might not apologize for their part, but they'll own some part of that. Yeah, I did this, or things like that. The other part is be consistent. It's okay to say, I don't know, that you're going to take a moment to think about that, but make sure if you say you're going to take action, that you are definitely taking action. Those are probably the biggest areas that I would highly recommend parents to focus on.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So I'm sure you have some free gift for our audience. Would you like to say something about it?
Yeah, if anyone's interested in following up with me directly and just running by one situation, you can go visit my website at www.innermatter.net, and you can sign up for there's a free 30-minute consult that you can meet with me one-on-one, and I'll give you, I mean, I have lots of tips and tools that parents can use.
Thank you so much for the interview and for your wisdom and for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Shylla.
you too. Thank you both. I appreciate it. This is so much fun to be on here and talk about this. Being a parent isn't easy. And so it is helpful to have a community and come together with different ideas. So thank you again.
Support our parents, definitely. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.